This is the Real Change Wilmington podcast, episode 28, the state of housing in Wilmington, with our guest today, Sheri McIntosh.
If that kind of property came available, then our two-story, 2,600 square foot would go on the market, opening it up for a growing family who could raise their family in the house that we raised our family in, which would open up their starter home for perhaps a rental or a renter that can move themselves into a starter home.
Yeah.
So each new property kind of keeps the market circulating.
What is going on, everybody? This is your host of the Real Change Wilmington podcast, Dustin Pierce, joined, like always, with my co-host,
Emily Spencer.
Full of charisma today. Anyways, so we have a fun podcast for you today, a short podcast, just overviewing the state of housing in Wilmington and talking about the land bank, talk about a little bit about vagrancy and new housing developments and so forth. So a little bit of everything today. Excited to get into that. But before we do, we'd like to just do a quick catch up on Emily and Dustin, just so you can kind of get an idea of who your hosts are before we get into the interview.
Yeah, because we are the most interesting people in Wilmington, let me tell you.
I didn't say that, but I do think it. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, so Emily, I told Emily before the podcast I was going to put her on blast with the question. This is like a philosophical question, Emily. So we talk about homelessness on the podcast. If you were to go homeless today, if you lost your house, what would you do?
I'd live in my car.
You would?
Well, I mean, I drive an SUV, so it's easier for me to say that. I would probably go to Walmart and buy an air mattress and put an air mattress in the car until I could, unless, is this a scenario where I can't go to my family? Like, I have to be on my own?
I didn't consider that, but I guess, yeah, sure. So you would go to your family's house, obviously, for living in your car.
I'd probably go to my mom's house for a little bit, and then couch hop. But I do have a lot of roommates. I don't think we could all fit in my car, so.
You'll have each individual cars, I guess.
Yikes.
It's like camping.
We'll be like Mad Max. We'll just output them all and we'll just drive it. Nobody's getting in. What about you? If you were suddenly homeless with your 10 chickens, where would you be?
I forgot I like 10 chickens. I would be responsible for them. I didn't even think about it. It's just leave them. Abandon them.
Foreclose on the chickens.
Oh my gosh. Well, I do have a truck, so I could sleep in there, I suppose.
Oh, in your hammock?
I have a truck hammock now. So I searched Amazon for a truck hammock, couldn't find one, so I had to make my own, and it is the best thing ever. So I'm probably going to go stargaze tonight in my truck hammock.
So outside of your theoretical being a person that is homeless in the back of your vehicle, what are you doing this weekend?
Yeah, I didn't actually set that question up to talk about what I was doing this weekend. It just kind of naturally flowed that way. But that's what I'm doing this weekend. So now, putting it back on you, what are you doing this weekend, Emily?
Well, my mom wants to go to the city, and she hates driving in the city, so I always drive her. But she wants to go cemetery crawling in Cincinnati. So that's something that my mother and I and my brother do a lot, is we go to historical cemeteries and look at all the tombstones and mausoleums and stuff, and then we'll probably go thrift shopping.
Yeah, that's not just something for freaks to do. I think it's a pretty normal thing now because they have that cemetery crawl here in Wilmington.
Yeah, Talking Tombstones.
Talking
also
Tombstones.
On Saturday.
This Saturday?
Yeah, it's this coming Saturday.
Dang.
They have a limited number of tickets to be sold at the event. Their online is closed.
Okay, well, we'll try to get this podcast launched today, Friday, so everyone will know about Talking Tombstones. And if not, you missed everybody. Try again next year.
That's all I got. Sorry.
That's fine. We talked enough about ourselves, so let's get into housing with Sheri McIntosh. Sheri, welcome to the Real Change Wilmington podcast. Thanks for making the time to share with us today about the state of housing in Wilmington.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we'd like to start off our podcast by just getting to know you personally. So if you don't mind, just tell us about your history.
Okay. All right. Born in Clarksville, Tennessee as an Army brat, but moved back here when I was 2 years old. So I'm a lifetime resident of Clinton County. Right out of high school, I was hired at a local real estate appraisal company as their secretary, which is what we were called back then, and learned the appraisal process while I was going to college. Right out of college, I started working at Clinton Memorial Hospital as their employment coordinator. But when our first baby came along, it was a better option for me to do appraisals again. I could be a stay-at-home mom and still work. So I have been appraising basically since high school. And in 2011.
You started your own appraisal company, is that right?
In 1998, I started my own appraisal company. Yes.
Okay.
And then in 2011, after we had gone through the downturn of the market of 2008, realized that you kind of have to have your apples in more than one basket in real estate. So I got licensed as a real estate agent and worked for a couple of different companies, and then started my own brokerage last year.
So yeah, you opened up your own business or own real estate company last year, right? 2022?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. I had, there were some changes in my life that it just became apparent that it was time for me to go out on my own. Mm-hmm. I had all of the classes and all the experience I needed to take the broker's exam.
Yeah.
So I kind of dove in and took the exam and started my own company.
What does that involve to get your brokerage license?
You have to have a certain amount of real estate closings over time, and different classes. So different management classes, different business classes, along with the real estate classes you've taken to become a licensed agent.
Okay. And how big is your team right now?
Right now, there are 5 of us working. I have Billy Earhart, who owns Brown's Funeral Home, Mike McCarty, who also works as a county commissioner, Tammy Jones, who works as a full-time agent, and her daughter-in-law, Tiffany Lindsay, is from the Washington courthouse area and is selling for us. And then I round out the team as number 5.
Okay. What are the different challenges now being a broker as opposed to just being an agent?
A lot of them are the same, but it's monitoring, helping agents out when they come across problems, difficulties, issues, making sure we're state compliant all the time, that kind of thing.
Okay. So a little bit more about your background. What was a defining moment for you growing up?
Wow. Growing up, that's a hard question. I would say lots of different ones. When I was young, my dad was in the Army. I still have memories of that time, which I was very young when that happened. So definitely then. Throughout high school, I met my husband in high school. That's a defining moment. We adopted our first child when I was 27. And then had another one come along by surprise 9 years later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so those all defined my life pretty much.
My brother and I also have a age gap of 12 years.
Oh, yeah?
13.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for it. You get to parent both completely, I think, when they're far apart.
That's what my mom says.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
What is a piece of wisdom that has helped you in your life that you would want to share with other people?
I think always deal with people honestly and above board, and it gets you where you need to go in the end.
Yeah.
For sure. Yep. Took a lot of advice and wisdom for the late Bob Gurman. He worked with me at Bennett Realty and was a super great guy and handled his business that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Reputation's everything.
Reputation's everything, for sure, especially in this business.
Yeah, especially in a small town, too.
Especially
you
in
can't
a
just
small
hide.
town. That's right.
Yeah.
Everybody knows your business, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of our talk today. The first question is just going to be, how did the DHL pullout affect Wilmington's housing market?
Significantly. Mm-hmm. I remember that there was a house on the market at the time for in the high 4s. It hadn't sold yet. It listed the week before DHL announced. And it was a doctor's home, beautiful place, probably 4,000 square feet, listed, I think, $495, if my memory is correct. It sold almost 3 years later for $295,000. So it was a significant impact on Clinton County. The high-priced homes were obviously affected the most. There was nobody moving into the area to take those jobs that could afford the higher-priced homes. But all homes, it was significant. The foreclosure rate skyrocketed during that time. A lot of blighted properties during that time. More people were renting than owning. It was surely a dark time in Clinton County.
Are we still experiencing the fallout from that, or is like the housing market trends in line with national trends?
I think we're back to national trends now. It did, of course, take us, maybe the world trends started a little after us because of DHL.
Yeah.
And it took us a little longer to recover when you lose your biggest employer in a day. When that happened, my parents and now my brother own a local flooring company. They own Superior Flooring. And the day they announced, they were at DHL laying thousands of yards of new flooring. So not even the locals knew that, or most of them. I can't say that all, but there were improvements being made there even up to announcement.
Yes, that not only affected the workers of DHL, but also the people who were doing work for them.
For sure. I mean, you couldn't be in any sort of business in Clinton County because the workers there didn't have the money to buy new carpet or, do improvements to their houses or anything else really at the time.
What are some of the obstacles facing Wilmington's housing market that are unique to us?
I think that we're not always as welcoming change as some areas are. We're not maybe up for new development, things that could kind of trend us towards other places our size. Other than that, I would say we're fairly on trend with what's happening in the bigger picture.
Okay. Yeah, I've been to a few city council meetings and there's been some concerns about change.
Yeah.
Which not all the concerns seem unreasonable, but.
For sure. I mean, certainly you have to be careful with your decision making. Absolutely. But we also have to keep in mind that staying the same probably isn't a good option either. Right now we're in a spot where there's only 40 houses on the whole market in Clinton County.
Yeah.
And that's
the whole county.
The whole county. That's right. That's Blanchester. That's the outside the city limits. That's Wilmington. There's only 40. To have a market that's in balance, it would probably take triple to quadruple that amount.
Yeah.
And an imbalanced market is what keeps the prices level, where we're not in this constant state of going up, which is great for a seller. That's why we're in a seller's market right now.
Right.
But, when the average cost of a home right now is over $200,000, it makes it difficult for a first-time home buyer to get into a property also.
Yeah, definitely. Emily's crying over there. Yeah. So the next thing we want to talk about is some of the issue that seems like there is with blighted properties and properties that are not only blighted, but vacant as well. What do you see as the reason for that?
Well, I'm not sure that I'm the right person to give a full answer on the reason. I think some of them started in deterioration during that time period where DHL had pulled out. And so there wasn't money for improvements. And then once a small leak starts, then it takes over. So once you have a small repair that needs to be done that isn't getting done, it just continues. I think a lot of them were rental properties then. I think we're lucky to have the land bank now that's kind of taking some of those properties that have become blighted back under their control so that they can either be raised or sold to someone else.
Yeah. And I have more questions about the land bank. But I'm someone who's trying to purchase a property right now, like whether it's going to be a rental or property for our offices. And it seems like there's property owners that are holding on to properties that are vacant or being not being utilized. My question is what is the value of that for them? Is there a value? Do you get a tax write-off for that? Or is it just you're hoping for appreciation later on down the road? What are some of the reasonings that people would hold on to a property that maybe is either blighted or just vacant for a long period of time?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I didn't know there was a good reason. I wasn't sure.
A good reason. Tax wise, I'm not an accountant, so I couldn't really give you what the tax benefit would be to that.
Okay.
I think they're not getting income. Maybe it's potential income out of it later. It's hard to say.
Okay.
It's hard to say.
I was just trying to give them the benefit of the doubt that there's some reason.
That
Yeah. All right. Well, there's no good answer for that. My next question is, we've talked to the police chief, and people in town have stories about squatters and vacant properties. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to ask you why that is or whatever, but what are some recommendations to property owners and landlords to help prevent squatters?
Gosh, I think you're asking the wrong person for that. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I know it's an issue. I think it's a hard situation. I think distinguishing between homelessness and vagrancy is definitely a problem, and I'm not sure what the answers are, but I hope that there's people that are working towards that goal.
Yeah.
I know that we have new people in city government that are working hard to get the properties cleaned up. Mm-hmm. And I know that the land bank is also working hard to get those properties taken back so that new development can happen on the properties.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, my question was less about laws and stuff that need to be changed or things like that, but just hey, do we need to maybe check on your property every once in a while?
For sure.
Put a lock on it or something like that.
Yeah. It absolutely. I looked at one yesterday that's probably going to be going up for sale soon that, they lived out of the country actually. And by the time they knew what was happening, it was almost too late. There's broken windows, there's pulled electric, there's all those things that have taken a beautiful old home and really destroyed it, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. Sure.
I would say absolutely check. It's hard because glass breaks and you don't want all the windows boarded up through town, but that's, what's had to happen with this property at least.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like it's hard to know who to blame because it's we live in a town that has a homelessness problem. So the homeless are going to do what the homeless are going to do. So check on your property once in a while,
Check on your property.
Be a responsible property owner.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about the land bank.
Okay.
Were you part of the inception of that or how did that?
They started including the realtors early. Robin Clifton and I were included in the very beginning to go out and either drive by or walk through properties to give them some sort of idea on value of the properties. And then further into the process, they felt like it was a good idea to list these properties on the multiple listing service. So they included all of a representative from each of the real estate companies who are on the Clinton County Board of Realtors.
Okay. Yeah, on their website, I'm just going to read what they say about themselves. So it says the Clinton County Land Reutilization Corporation, or also called the Land Bank, was created in 2016 in order to return vacant and abandoned properties to productive use throughout Clinton County. Over the years, a number of blighted, abandoned, tax-delinquent properties have had an adverse effect on neighborhoods in every part of the county. The Land Bank is working in cooperation with municipalities and townships to identify these problem properties and provide a strategic response to addressing the blight and returning properties to productive use. Mm-hmm. Yes. Sounds like a pretty awesome goal.
It's an awesome goal. It was lofty, but they're certainly accomplishing it. There's been quite a few properties that have sold more vacant land. A lot of them have, the dwelling has been torn down. The land bank has certain qualifications for a new buyer on the property so that it facilitates tax revenue in the future for the county, which is also good. Mm-hmm. And future thinking, I think they're doing a great job. There was one in particular that Eileen Brady took on. You may have seen the pictures, but the property had structural issues, basement issues, and she turned it into quite the showplace. And we sold it again to a young couple.
Nice.
About a year later.
Nice.
The land bank, they took control briefly of the property that sits across the street from my house.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got in there, we talked to the code enforcement official about it. And she said that it was one of the most disgusting houses she'd ever seen. And that it had a lot of issues, and they left everything, and they left it disaster. And it just sold, I'm pretty sure, to a family. And it looks like a totally different house.
Yeah.
It looks like they picked it up and like put a new house there.
Right. It's a great program for sure.
How does the land bank acquire properties?
That would probably be a better question for their attorney.
Okay.
A lot of them are in foreclosure,
Yeah.
and they take them back deed in lieu or some sort of legal process to get them back into their ownership.
Okay. From what I understand too, it sounds like there are some properties where the owners are facing like charges because of the state of the property. So in lieu of like getting that jail time or those fees, they're able to just give their property away, and that can get all wiped clean, from what I understand.
Yeah. That would be a good question for the legal counsel.
Sure.
They do have legal representation for the land bank that does take care of all that.
I'm sure there's multiple ways that they acquire property.
It is. There are multiple ways for sure. We come in after the properties are back to the land bank
Mm-hmm.
to get them listed and out to the market for resale.
What are the requirements for getting a property like that? So like if I was an investor and I want to purchase a property, how would I do that? And what are the requirements tax wise and stuff?
Those are fairly specific and on their website.
Okay.
You can't have any zoning violations or I believe tax violations.
Just personally, you can't have any like,
That's right.
yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah. The goal is to not have the property, go back into the same condition. So they try to make it, and the goal is to have it taxable at the end, where it's a contribution back to the city.
Yeah.
You also have to submit a bid, which you do online for
Okay.
the property. The properties are held on the MLS for 45 days from listing. And then at the following meeting of the land bank, the committee decides on the winning bid.
Okay. So they have to be on there for 45 days before they accept a bid?
Yes. Well, they'll accept the bids in between, but before they decide on.
Okay. And then a property owner would go through like a realtor like you
Mhm.
to put that bid in, right?
Yes, we can help with that process.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And then they're required to like build a property in so much
Yes.
time or something, right?
Yes, there's
You can't
a
sit on the
time
land.
limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't sit on the land forever. And there is a stipulation that if you don't, then the property goes back to the land bank.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, you have to meet the requirements in the beginning. It isn't fair. Anybody could say anything to get the property. So there has to be some sort of follow up with them.
It's like 5 years or something to build something, right?
I believe it's 6, but I'd have
6. Okay.
I'd have to check on that specifically.
I'm going to buy a bunch of land in town and say I'm going to build a property
And then not.
use it for my chickens for 5 years and then just give it back.
I wouldn't do that.
No, I'm not.
Why is there a fence of chickens over here? What is this?
It's going to be affordable housing someday for my chickens. All right. So yeah, next topic is affordable housing. So this is a big talking point in town, and there's definitely some high opinions on both sides of the issue. So can you just give us a definition of what affordable housing means?
Well, I think it means different things to different people.
Okay. That's
For
fair.
sure. There's some people that believe affordable housing is low income housing. And I'm not sure, I think that that's one definition, but I think there's others that say, we need good starter homes. We need a good base. But actually, I think we would be good if we just had any homes on the market, because that movement in the housing market opens up those kinds of houses. So, for example, and I presented this at the council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So my husband, JD, and I live in a 2,600 square foot 2-story on 2 acres in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And our son moved out a couple weeks ago. So it's just the two of us. So it's a big house. It's a lot of house, but there are no houses for sale right now that would accomplish our goal of a 1-story on, a lot, certainly, but not 2 acres to take care of.
Yeah.
In a price range that we could afford. There aren't any in price ranges we couldn't afford, but there certainly not any in a price range we could. So if that kind of property came available, then our 2-story, 2,600 square foot would go on the market, opening it up for a growing family who could raise their family in the house that we raised our family in, which would open up their starter home for perhaps a rental or a renter that can move themselves into a starter home.
Yeah.
So each new property kind of keeps the market circulating and moving.
Yeah. I think, without getting into specifics of the council meeting, there was complaints that the housing that was proposed to be built was not quote unquote affordable. But your argument was that any housing opens up what could be affordable housing to other people.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Because, some people are looking to move up.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do that into a house that's, maybe 250,000, 200,000 above the median, but still within a range, it opens up their starter home that they haven't been able to move out of even, a couple kids later or whatever. It just keeps the market flowing.
Yeah. I didn't think about, when I asked the question about what's affordable housing mean, like a definition wise, I didn't think about there is different answers to that question.
And there are different answers.
So there's
right.
subsidized housing, which I guess would be considered affordable housing too, right? Or is that a different category?
Yeah. I mean, one that I'm not probably the best speaker on.
Yeah.
We, as real estate agents, as realtors, we just, those are not properties we sell.
Right. That would be a landowner who is renting it out to somebody, I assume then, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would probably be some sort of government sponsored rental.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what are some of the stigmas that you've heard around affordable housing? What are some of the concerns, I guess, around that scary term or whatever?
Well, the same thing you hear everywhere. Nobody wants it in their backyard, but nobody wants any new development.
That's
in
true.
Their backyard.
That's a good point.
So,
yeah.
Even the ones where the houses are going to be 250, nobody wants it in their backyard. It's just change is hard anywhere.
That's a good point. Yeah. So this is again, I don't want to get too much of your opinion about Wilmington because there's no need for that. But in general, have you seen affordable housing done well and affordable housing not done well?
I don't have as much experience with that.
Yeah, sure.
Because, I sell real estate.
Your market's different. Sure. Yeah.
My market's different.
Yeah.
And we don't handle rental properties in my office. Certainly you have landlords that are better than others. Of course we've seen that over time, but as far as government housing projects, we have some in the area. I don't have much knowledge about them.
Gotcha. That makes sense because it's not your market.
Right.
Just because you sell houses and you know all about every single type of house.
That's right.
No, yeah. So stepping back from affordable housing, what are just some general obstacles in Wilmington that Wilmington's facing just to build more houses in general? Does that make sense?
Well, it's a difficult process when developers come in. We've seen, a trend towards it being a difficult process for a developer to take a piece of land and subdivide it out and begin the development process.
What is the most recent development in Wilmington?
Timber Glen has been approved and there's new construction going on there. So that I would say, be the newest. So
some of the obstacles then would just be regulations maybe for developing land?
Different things that the developer needs in order to make it work with roads and
sure
that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that one? I
think it's important that we don't become a commuter town. where people don't live here. They just roll in for their jobs and then roll out in the afternoon. We want people to come here and live and go to our churches and attend our schools and buy from our businesses. So I think it's important that we stay on top of that need and try to find ways to work together with an interested developer that would take that project on.
Yeah. We've been to a few council meetings where, there's new jobs coming into Wilmington and new people in new roles in Wilmington. And some of those people are having to commute from even Columbus to work here. And that's crazy to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because we're missing out tax dollars.
Sure.
We're missing out money for the schools, on the income tax. We're missing, we're missing out by not having enough housing here for people who want to come.
Yeah. I think part of what I see is like the culture of Wilmington is that we really appreciate the locals.
We do.
So like we want them to be local,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
we need more houses for them to be a local.
Yes. Absolutely agree.
So last question, this is just a philosophical question about real change. We talked about how change is hard. What do you think, or what does real change mean to you? Not our name, but just the concept of what does real change mean to you?
I think committing to something and following it through to the end, trying to strive for what's best for not just yourself, but for the greater good creates real change, and working hard to get that done. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And thank you for, just all you do in Wilmington, helping out, making this a better place.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's it for our podcast today, folks. If you have more questions about housing, Sheri McIntosh is a good resource, and you can reach out to her at her office, located, I believe, on 22. Yeah, out that way.
Like you're heading towards Clarksville.
Yeah, past Sam's, on the left there. So yeah, definitely reach out to her. And then Emily, how can people connect to Real Change if they want to learn more about what we're doing?
So Real Change has social media. We have Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. You can follow us there. If you have questions, you can send us a message on there. But you can also go to our website and you can communicate with us there too. And if you see us walking around in public, feel free to talk to us.
Really? People can talk to you in public, Emily?
No, not me. I talk myself.
I'm
not a very talkative person.
What a generous offer. All right. With that, I'm your host, Dustin Pierce.
And I'm the co-host, Emily Spencer.
Keep it real, Wilmington.